Alright, we have the hole in the bench. The next step is the ice well itself. It is easier to build this before we put it in than to put it in and try and do everything upside down. Now, the machine's broken into two sides, inlet side and the outlet side on the base. With the newer models, the inlet side is 10mm and the outlet side is 6mm, simply because the guns, the fittings on the guns, take 6mm, so you have to convert them down to 6mm anyway. The older models, like this one, which not that old, 3 years give or take, everything's done in 10mm. So you do have to put a piece of 10mm line on, then convert it down to 6mm. With this gun, they want two guns. So we not only have to convert it down to 6mm, we then have to put a T-piece there to split it to both sides of the unit. What I like to do is put a line down the middle and label everything. Right in the middle, I go with the soda water. Then water, cola, lemonade, squash, ginger, then tonic and diet. Tonic and diet. It really depends on what flavors you're using, but that's what the guns come with as standard. Doesn't really matter what product ends up in there, as long as we have the right stuff attached to the right stuff. Say, for example, later on, if you decide to put lemon lime bitters instead of tonic, well, you just attach lemon lime bitters to that line. It still comes out the same spot over there. All right, from here, we've got to add the guns. So let's grab that stuff. All right, so the next step is to add the T-pieces. What I also recommend doing is insulating from this part on. Now, you don't need to insulate this line because this line's coming into the ice well, so it's already room temperature. But everything coming out of these ones here have been chilled down, so we want to keep them cold. Insulation. You want a fairly tight insulation with as much actual insulation around it as possible. I usually use about 19mm. You can get this stuff from Bunnings. You're looking around $4 or $5 a metre. However, if you want to save a bit of money, go down to find a local refrigeration place. We use Kirby. We're paying, I think, about $2.30 for 2 metres. So you'll need probably about 10 metres to do the job. Well, yeah, about 10 metres is a good amount to do the job. So let's add all the T-pieces. Now, when securing everything in place, we use these clamps. They can be purchased from Bracton Industries, Lancer, several places. They are a single term fine use clamp. Once they're clamped shut, they cannot be reused. These ones are 11.3mm clamps. They do a smaller size, which is the 10.5s, depending on the size of, well, the OD size of the tube. You want to make sure they're nice and tight, because this is what stops everything leaking. Okay, and that's the T-pieces on. I should also mention at this point in time, if you look at the diagram here, this is actually marked as inlet and this is outlet. I'm doing this in reverse. It doesn't really matter. It's not like there's a one-way valve or anything in there. I would usually stick to the schematic, but these pipes were already half done for me, so I didn't have to pull them off and start from scratch. I used what was currently on the machine as it came second-hand. Alright, next, the guns. These are a used Wunderbar gun that was provided by the client. We'll give them a nice clean down before we send it out. Now, on the gun there is a key. This key shows you the position of these lines compared to these buttons. For example, Coke in the top hand corner. Look for a top hand corner here, it is number 8, so the Coke will go there. The soda water and the water are the white ones in the middle, 5 being soda and 6 being water. We want to make sure we put stuff in the right spot, in the right places. This customer also has requested that the guns be attached to the underside of the bench on either side of the ice well. Personally, I like mounting the guns to the outside of the ice well, but whatever's more convenient. The catch will be with mounting it on this bench here. Of course, it doesn't have a wooden backing and it's just straight stainless steel. We're probably going to have to put in a wooden mounting block underneath to screw the guns into. Alright, continuing on. Starting with soda water in the middle. Let's move this around a little bit. All right. There we go, you can see what I'm doing a bit better. Alright, so soda water line. We're going to run that to this side gun. Top we're going to put over there. At the back side we're going to use this gun here. So we run it and make sure there's enough line. And we cut it. Next, we insulate it. We want as much insulation as possible, simply because the colder the drink is, the better the carbonation, so the more fizzier it is. As soon as post-mix, doesn't matter if it's an ice well or any type of post-mix, gets above 4 degrees, it goes flat pretty much instantly. Little tip with these fittings that go into the back of the gun. Don't push the pipe all the way to the end. What happens is this gets pushed into the gun and it has a locking pins that come down behind this. So if the tube goes all the way to the end, the locking pins can't come down and you'll have to redo it. Alright, soda water. So as we mentioned, soda water is number 5, so we find number 5. And we put it in. Alright. We want to keep these runs as short as possible, simply because after the product comes out of the ice well and into this line here, it just sits there and slowly goes warm until the gun's used again. So if there's a long time between the gun being used, the stuff in this line, because it's not only to this line, it's to the gun, and then all the way to the end of the gun, can warm up and then go flat. Not such a big problem if you're doing mixer drinks or something like that. Sorry, other way around. Not such a big problem if you're doing full cups of drink, because it mixes through and the cold stuff mixes with the warm stuff and you can't taste it. However, if you're doing a mixer where you got a spirit glass, half full of ice, a shot of your spirit of choice. By the time you mix a very small amount of soft drink in, that very small soft drink very well might be the warm stuff sitting in the line, and you've ruined your drink. You've given someone a flat drink. Always recommend giving any post-mix machine, well, when you pick it up, you first use it if it hasn't been used in a while, give the soda water just a little bit of a spurt to start with. It doesn't need long, 2 seconds. Clears out the line, gets all the old stuff out, preps it for new stuff, and you know you're putting out a good quality product. Okay, we've done the soda water line, we've moved on to the plain water line, which is the other white tab on the back of the gun. Yeah. Okay, and that's all of them in, except I forgot to insulate that line. Always double check your work. Okay, now that's in. That's all of them. Now, this is a cheaper way of doing it. The ideal way of doing it is using a proper splitting device for these guns. What you can get from Lancer, well, not from Lancer anymore, I try Bracton, I actually bring them in from the States, is a splitter component on the front. So all these literally go to a splitter box here, and these sections of the gun plug into either side. Everything's a lot neater, a lot more professional, but that splitter box isn't cheap. You're looking at probably another $1,200 just for that box. If you're on a budget, such as the gentleman that I'm putting this one together for, he went with the cheaper option, which was just a T-piece and insulated lines. Now, you can also not have to insulate every single line. You can use a larger insulation. I'd insulate the soda water and the water together, and do say 3 syrups and 3 syrups. It'd be a lot neater and a little bit cheaper. I did it this way as a demonstration, simply because, well, it's easier. You're gonna probably find problems if you go the other way, if you haven't done it before and you don't know what you're doing. But this is just a nice and easy way. All this is hidden under the bench, so you won't see it. Now, things you're going to need. Bunnings, $4. Pair of secateurs, gardening section. Bunnings, tool section, pincers, about $30. The clamps that I mentioned earlier come in a pack of 100 from Bracton Industries. You can buy them from us. Tube. This is fluid fit, 6mm line. I use it because it is UV rated. You don't need to use a UV rated one, long as it's got the 6mm ID, so it can plug into the barbs for the back of the gun. Now those barbs come with a new gun. However, if you're using second-hand equipment and don't have the barbs, they can be purchased from Bracton Industries, or usually sourced from any middleman supplier like myself. At this point, I usually drop the ice well into the bench, which we'll do. Around, down at the front. Now, just to make your life easier so you're not dragging guns all over the place, these guns do actually separate from the manifold. These front clips here, just make sure they're all up, and the guns themselves will separate. They do go back together just as easily. This is usually a two-man job. It's more awkward than heavy. The whole thing weighs, I'd say, 30 kilos. Now, lay it on the side, put the gun through the hole. Now, at this point, I would usually recommend some silicone around the outside. When you get these new, they come with a roll of silicone tape. That tape, once again, goes around the outside, and when you drop it on, it stops it from, well, stops any water from leaking down between the bench and the ice well. The gentleman that I am building this for opted for the bead of silicone, as it was slightly cheaper than what I was going to charge him for the actual proper silicone tape. Comes with these things. But as long as you silicone it up well, it will work just as intended. Alright, we'll drop that in the hole. Go. Down the silicone overspill. Not the final clean, but it starts to get the job done. Right, from here we need to attach the guns and put them underneath the bench. Are up. Line down up. And the pins back down. Same with the other side. Make sure all pins are up. Line up the gun. Pins down. Alright. Alright, mounting the guns. There is a correct way and there is a slightly cheaper way, which, well, there's no real problem with it, but not as easy to service and get maintained. This is a mounting block. They're about 25 bucks each. they attach to the bottom of the bench or to the side of the bench or wherever you want it to go. And the holes in the Wunderbar gun line up to the screw holes here, and it slips on, it comes off with a couple of butterfly nuts. However, this one won't be doing that. We decided to go with a cheaper option, which was a couple of hex head screws through the top. Nothing wrong with this, it will work, absolutely. It makes servicing a little bit harder if you ever need to get the guns off. You need to bring a hex bit with you. But apart from that, it does work. And won't cause any real problems. We prefer to see it be used with the proper mounting block though. It's in, it's fairly secure, no problem. My obvious favourite for a dual gun system would be the splitter. Let's see if I can find one of them to show you. Here's one I have second hand laying around. What happens is, it gets mounted here to the front of the machine somewhere. These pipes go under here, which eliminates the need for all this piping. And the guns attach here and here. Much neater and cleaner. Doesn't need anywhere near as piping. You do get a better product because the syrup goes nowhere near as along the length. I highly recommend them. Not cheap. But this will work if you're on a bit of a budget. Also, I'm not sure about getting these in Australia, I'll be honest. I know you used to get them from Lancer. Lancer lost the contract to do Wunderbar guns in Australia. And I know Bracton does the one, well, Bracton has the license to do the guns. I'm not sure that Bracton do them. I will check and I will put an update in the video whether or not you can actually get these in Australia. As I said, I bring them over from the States. But they are definitely the way to go. Right, they're mounted and they're secure, not going anywhere. They're in tight. Now, next we will do the gun holders. This one has elected to go with a holster style, which is the most popular and what I recommend. They're about $5 more expensive than the Wunderbar holders. Difference is the Wunderbar ones are that come with the guns are a bit flimsy. They're more of a holder that go like this, and you find that they fall out and break the nozzle quite often. These holsters are the more popular choice these days. I'd say 8 out of 10 people go with the holsters rather than the holders. They hold the gun much more securely so they don't fall down in the bench like so. Now there are pros and cons. The original one that sits on the bench like this, you can attach a hose to the bottom of it and run that into a drain. So any drips, and you're always going to get a drip or two, are taken away. With this one, those drips are going to land right there on your bench. It's only a drop or two, and lots of people will put a beer runner, drip tray, across the top here of this anyway to serve drinks from. That way scoop the ice from the back and place the drink here while it's being served. But that's up to the individual. Don't be lazy like me, you'd probably be desperate to drill the hole first. Save yourself some effort. Alright, guns are attached. They will need to be bricksed, but that's pretty much the very last thing we do. Right, we also have the lid. This one's fixed in place, that one slides. We also do, as an optional extra, a drip tray that goes with it. This customer has taken that. As you can see, I mount the guns where I do, close to the middle. This way they can, if they do drip, they're dripping into the drip tray. There's plenty of room at the back to access ice to fill up your cup, and you can, it's quite sturdy, so you can put the cup on there while you're filling it up and finishing off the beverage. With the lid on, the ice will last longer. The whole thing's insulated, so depending on how much soft drink you're doing, the ice will last for a long time. But having said that, the more soft drink you do, the faster the ice will melt. The way this thing works is it's taking tap temperature water, what's that, 18, 20 degrees. It's running it through a chiller plate in the bottom. That chiller plate absorbs the heat out of the water. It melts the ice to do that. It chills it down to 2 degrees. So it's going from 18, 20, 25 degrees in far north Queensland on a hot day down to 2 degrees or lower. Ideally you want to see it 1.5 degrees as a good serving temperature, but 2 is acceptable. Anything over 4 and your product's flat and you've set something up wrong. Probably the flow rate on the guns is too high. If you have it go through the guns too far, through the system too fast, then it doesn't take out enough heat, and that can just be fixed by slowing it down. Your product will come out flat. Yeah, your glass will get filled fast, but it'll be glass of flat soft drink. Back to the point. Yeah, so the more you use it, the faster the ice will melt. But you do actually get quite a bit of soft drink for a tub of ice. Now, it is crucial you have the ice well half full. My biggest call out for these machines that's not working in this flat, I arrive and they've got an ice cube tray worth of ice in the bottom. It needs to be minimum half full to work. Manufacturer recommends fill it to the roof. I understand that not everyone has an ice maker capable of that. Not everyone's going through enough product in service to warrant that. So at least half fill it. Otherwise it isn't going to work properly. Alright, next step is the carbonator. Alright. Now I'm going to have to pause because this is sitting on the box that the carbonator's in. Alright, the carbonator. Now, as far as new carbonators go in Australia, there are a couple of brands. From Lancer, you can get the Lancer Turbo carbonator. It is probably the best carbonator. Only thing that makes it better is it has a light on it. It's a little light that shows you what it's doing and if something goes wrong. Green means it's working well. It's got a test button you can press to make sure it's working. If something goes wrong, like it's got a fault, not enough water, not enough gas, etc., the light changes colour and you can read the manual and find out what's wrong. Yeah, expect to pay around $1,500 for one of those. Expensive, but not that expensive. Next up, this one. This is a great carbonator. It is the... Let's see if I can get a better shot of that. There we go. This is the McCann carbonator. A very, very good carbonator. Only thing it doesn't have is the lights to tell you what's happening. Apart from that, it does the exact same job. Water comes in here. That water is pressurized into the tank. This is CO2 carbon dioxide. That puts your bubbles in it. So that has a pressure of about 80 psi. This pump overcomes that pressure to get the water into the tank. These two are outlets that supply the soda water up to the ice well for chilling. So not that complicated at all. Water, gas, soda water leaves, and a standard 10 amp power point. One thing you've got to remember though, when you buy these, well, I should tell you, this one's slightly cheaper. You're looking at around $1,300, $1,250, $1,300 for this one. For the extra $150, $200, I would recommend getting the Lancer one, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with this one. It's a great unit. Now, the Lancer one comes with all the fittings needed to use it. This one doesn't. If you're going to buy it from either myself or Bracton, you need to ask for the fittings. If you ask for it at the time of purchase, usually they'll sell you individual fittings. If you ask for it afterwards, you might have to buy a pack of 10. Now, there's also the choice of the plastic John Guest fittings or the stainless steel fittings. I would recommend the stainless steel ones. They're just more solid. The John Guest ones are great. They usually last between 3 to 5 years, sometimes longer. After that, I find they crack and split and leak. But having said that, if someone bumps them or hits them, they're plastic. They're going to break easier. So I always recommend the stainless steel ones. Make sure you use the washer. I'll be honest, I'm actually making this at my house on Sunday. It's the only time I've got to take time and go through something like this slowly. If I was at work, the phone would be ringing off the hook. I've got customers asking me to do stuff, I've got staff inquiring about stuff, so I'm doing this on the weekend in my own shed. So I apologise I'm not in the factory. Go, that's all the fittings. We just need to tighten them up a little bit. Alright, this machine comes with 2 soda outs. We only need 1, so we're going to shut one of them down. To do that, we put a bit of 10mm pipe. Couple of clamps. And then a stopper. If you don't have a stopper, you can get them from Rakton or Hoshizaki Lancer. Alternately, if you had a 10mm T-piece, you could T-piece both of them into one and do it that way. That would also work. Next, we place this under here. Give that a quick wipe down. Once again, not fine and clean, just a bit of a tidy up. That's in there nicely. From here, we need to run a 10mm line from the soda out to the, on the carbonator we just put in there, to the soda in on the bottom of the ice well. So, let's start with, that'll go in there nicely. Alright, so we put that on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a right angle. That way I don't have to bend the hose and possibly cause a kink. If we cause a kink, soda won't come through and we'll have all sorts of issues. So just to make sure we're good. We've got a 10mm right angle. And that goes. Still too big. Still too big. There we go. And the clamp short. Right. Using the right size clamps are important. For example, what have we got? These are 15.7 size clamps. Now, for normal size Python, for Python lines, perfect. But for this stuff, although the ID is the same, the OD is smaller. So we won't get a nice tight seal. So what we want is 14.5s. Alright. So, making sure you have the right size clamp for your tube is essential, otherwise it won't seal tightly and you will get leaks. Because especially the soda water line has got a fair bit of pressure in it. Now I ended up putting a second right hand elbow in there just because I wasn't happy with it bending up from the first. This way there's definitely not going to kink anywhere and it's going to be held in place quite firmly. Alright, so at the moment we've got the carburetor just sitting there, not plugged in. We've got the soda line 2 blocked off. If you have a second ice well somewhere, that's what it would be used for. We have the first soda line going up into the soda inlet on the ice well. Next we have, well, that only leaves the gas inlet line, and we'll plug a gas line into that when we do the gas regulator, and the water inlet line, which is over the back here, and that'll be taken care of when we do the water filter. Alright, next we are going to look at syrup pumps. So what I'll do is I will turn this around and we'll get it started. Alright, now we're going to attach the syrup pumps. What we're going to do is the syrup pumps are going to be mounted on the back of the ice well. Not my favourite thing to do. Usually there is some sort of mounting board. Lancer makes a really fancy stainless steel one with the flow jet pumps. In there you've got individual isolation valves. They're absolutely fantastic. Expensive. You're looking around $2,500 for the board. We usually use a Perspex board and mount them to that. Now we can give you the option of with or without individual isolation valves. The isolation valves make life a little bit easier because if a pump blows, you can quickly turn that one valve off and continue using the rest of the pumps in the system until that pump can be changed. However, it's not an essential piece of equipment. This is the syrup pump and the gas line. On the bottom of the where it comes in, there's a little tab. If you push that if you get, as Philip said, screwdriver or knife or something and push it sideways, the gas line drops out. There's a little button on the top that stops the gas coming out. The gas comes out once it's inserted up there and that button gets pushed down. So simply by removing this button, this gas line, it does the same job and can save you $100, $150, but rather than putting in shut-off valves. But options. Now the cheapest way is no shut-off valves and no mounting board, and attach them yourself to a brick wall, the back of the ice well, the shelving unit you're putting it onto. You need them to be fairly close to your syrup boxes. Your discharge line, like most pumps, works for a fair distance, but your suction line, you want it to be fairly close. Now with these, this will work fine. You just have to make sure the screw you're using is long enough to go through the outside, but not long enough to punch through the insulation and go through the second layer of stainless steel into your tank. That would be bad. So, and they can just be mounted to the outside. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this if this is going to be permanently mounted into a location. Simply because one day the syrup pumps are going to fail. You're going to get a syrup pump that's going to die, and you're going to need to get to it. So I'd recommend putting it somewhere accessible. This will work. As I said, as long as it doesn't get siliconed or screwed or attached permanently, and you can pull this bench out with a little notice and turn that syrup pump off. So let's get these attached. Also, don't put the screws down too low. If you do, you very well might puncture some of the syrup coils in there, and that's going to be bad. Okay, these, as I said, are second-hand pumps. They were supplied to us by the customer, along with the second-hand tank and guns. So he's purchased them off Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, somewhere, and was after us to put them in for him. Apparently he had to go himself and wasn't able, but he is on a budget, which is absolutely fine. So, the pumps are in. Next step is the gas line. Alright, the gas line on this one, they've provided, they came with gas pumps, these nice T-sections. You don't usually see this, and pumps usually won't come with it. What they'll do is come with a bar that comes, same at the top there, but comes straight down. So if you're not going to put in a manifold that can shut them down individually, then they'll usually be chained round with a T-piece, the same T-piece we used to split the syrup line at the beginning. But they've made this nice and easy for us. Just chain this around. Okay. Put that one on backwards.
Hi.
Hello. And the N1 doesn't have a T-piece, it is just an L-piece, because it doesn't go anywhere. From there we run 6mm line. between each fitting. Then clamp everything in place. Okay, stuffed up. There should have been another one there. Alright. Make sure you clamp every line and pay attention to what you're doing. Luckily I put enough slack in it to accommodate for that. And don't have to redo the piece. Now, if this is going in an enclosed space, which it really shouldn't be because it's going into a bar, I'm talking a cool room or under the stairs cupboard or something like that, you have a second outlet port here, which needs to be vented to atmosphere. Of course, it's going in a huge bar, and it's having a 6 kilo gas bottle. That's not necessary. Alright, next line is your syrup line, which goes from the syrup pump over to the box. For that, we use a 10mm clear line and a fitting. However, of course I'm actually installing this in the venue. I'm going to do that on site. But once again, ridiculously easy. Push the tube over, clamp it tight, run the hose to wherever you're going to store the boxes, cut it to size, put a clamp over the end of it, put that black fitting over it, and clamp that black fitting on tight. Then write what flavour it is on it. That is all that's needed to be done for that. But the next step of this would be running the flavours from the syrup pump to the ice well. To do that, we will start at the ice well side and attach a line. Now we've got 6 flavours, so there's 6 lines. We've already attached the soda water. We haven't attached the cold plain water yet though. We'll take care of that when we attach the water filter. So I'm going to start with cola. So we have cola. What I like to do, so we know where we're at, is write on either the pump or near the pump what it is. That way, when I have to come back and service in 6 months, a year, 3 years, I know what is what. Because my memory isn't good enough to remember. Alright, so we'll make this one here Coke. Put a C, we'll put a circle. Alright. So it goes to there, we'll cut it off there. Clamp it tight. And it just slips into the fitting spot there, and we push the little tab across. And it's held in place nicely. We just need to do that for the other 5 flavours. This one we're going to make lemonade. Preferably don't put it in your mouth. We're going to have to sterilise that one. Once again, not thinking before I act. Squash for that one. Make that one squash. last one was ginger. This one tonic. Alright, that one is tonic, and that one is diet. Okay, that is the syrup pump. It's installed, except for obviously the syrup line to the box, which we're going to do on site. Next part would be the gas regulator. Alright, they sent down gas regulators with the system. However, they were beer gas regulators, not post-mix gas regulators. The difference is, beer gas regulators, or at least the ones they sent down, are designed to work at a lower pressure. They actually had a exhaust to atmosphere at 300 kPa. You need 550 kPa of gas pressure to get bubbles in your post mix. It would have worked to pump the syrups, but it was nowhere near strong enough to work the carbonator. So we're going to go with one of these. It is probably the cheapest post mix gas regulator you can get. From Bracton, it's a bottle mounted unit. There are wall mounted units. They're about twice the price. It's a good unit though. It's probably an entry-level unit. I'm not going to attach it. Once again, of course I'm installing this unit. I'm not sure where they're going to locate the gas bottle. So I won't attach the gas lines, but I will run through them with you. So once you get this thing out of the box, you need to attach the barbs to the bottom. Make sure they're tightened up nicely. And, okay, these are shut-off valves. I usually make sure they're turned off, which they are now, off to the side, and we attach it to a gas bottle. It just hand tightens on. Don't use a tool, you will ruin it, and just give it a little twist. When you turn the gas bottle on, this one over here, which is the, well, gas bottle pressure, will go up. The others won't, which is what we want. From this point, I make one of these for syrup pumps and one of them for the machine. I usually do the machine as closest to the gas bottle. So I usually write on them 80 psi carb. So we want this to be at 80 psi and it's for the carbonator. I write this one as 40 psi for the syrups. That's the bottle, doesn't need to be touched. Alright. Next step is we set these. These are turned off, so nothing's coming out. But it does allow us to set the gauges. So all you do, flathead screwdriver, and turn them until you get to the pressure you want. In this case, 40 psi, psi being the red. Outside is kPa, some people work in one, some people work in the other. Then tighten the lock nut underneath. Same with the syrups. Adjust it up to 40 psi and tighten the lock nut. Now, the bad thing about these ones is that's going to move. when staff change the gas bottles, they'll usually hold it around here somewhere so they can take it on, take it off, etc., etc. And that's the adjustment knobs. So that's why it's written on there. Every now and then, just make sure that these are set to the right amounts. And this one here will tell you if there's gas in the bottle. When you're at the bottom of the red, it's empty. Green is full. Don't expect it to come all the way around here. If you're using it on a bottle with nitrogen in it, or a high pressure gas, it will. CO2, and what you want is carbon dioxide and compressed carbon dioxide. Depending on your gas company, they label stuff differently. For example, BOC labels this as liquefied, but that's exactly what we want. Some like Supergas, they have liquefied, they have compressed, and they have liquid draw. What you're after is a compressed food grade CO2. If you use anything with nitrogen in it or a liquefied product, then it's going to come, well, your product's going to be flat. That's all there is to it. And it's a bit of a nightmare to get nitrogen out of your system. That's another long story we'll go through if you ever have that problem. Once this is done, if you open these up, you hear gas. So don't open that up until you're ready to use the system and commission everything. Right, from your carbonator, it goes down to your actual carbonator section down there. On the carbonator, gas in. Okay. Let's see now. You run a 6mm line down to, wow, where is it? You see, it's this point on top of here. I pointed it out earlier on the carbonator when I was building that. The other one, the syrup, goes on here on the end of your syrup line. And that's all there is to your gas bottle. Alright, next is your water filter. Cheap option for water filters. There are many different styles, types, quantities, grades, etc., etc. But if you want a decent one at a cheap price, look in eBay for caravan water filters. You'll find something like this. Make sure the one you buy has a 1/2-inch port. And you want a dual filter, one that takes out things like chlorine and flavorings, anything bad like that, any bad taste. And you want one that's going to take out rust and dirt particles. Once the filter cartridges are in, then, cheap way of doing it once again, head down to Bunnings. In their plumbing section, you'll find Smart XC. What you want is 1/2-inch fittings. You need 2 male and 1 female. Your female is your tap water fitting, and your male are each side of the water filter. This is the cheapest option for water filter. Alright, bit of plumbing tape on the fittings. Now, be careful about this. If you cross thread it, well, the casing's plastic, so you only get one chance. If you stuff up the thread, it's going to leak on you. So, tighten them up. So that goes from the tap. We use the 1/2 inch line, sorry, 10mm line. It is a 1/2 inch OD. From the tap to the water inlet, from the water inlet, we go to the outlet. Now, at this point, you're going to need a water pressure regulator. Couple of options here. Your cheapest option is to get one of these. John Guess 350 kPa, fixed orifice, push in, pressure limiting valve. It's got an arrow on it that shows direction. They're about 20 bucks on eBay. You can't go wrong with them. Like, you can't mess them up, besides putting them in opposite way the arrow shows. They're a great little unit. So on the outlet side, put a 10mm line. From that 10mm line, we're going to put in a T-piece. The reason for the T-piece is we don't want the cold water line going through the pressure limiting valve, because that will make your cold water coming out of the gun very, very slow. So we want to limit the water pressure going to the carbonator, but not to the plain cold water. Okay, it's getting a little bit complicated, because from here I'm actually reducing it from 10mm to 6mm, so it goes through the water pressure regulator. You might be able to pick one up that's 10mm. I have never been able to find one. But we actually want it to reduce the amount of water pressure going through, so it is a good thing. And that's what she looks like in the end. So, water in on this side, water out to your water button, and water out to your carbonator. The carbonator 1 connects up to this point right here to supply. Alrighty, so with the water filter, from your cold water tap, make sure it's the cold water tap. I've had people run it from your hot water tap before. It melts your ice really, really fast if you do that, and still comes out flat. With your 10mm line, goes to the inlet side on your water filter. From your outlet side, goes to the water button, water prong, which is down here. Look, right there. It's marked with a W on your ice well. That produces cold water, cold filtered water, without being slowed down by your regulator. And your regulator goes to there. That's pretty much it. Once you add the gas regulator, the water filter, plug it all in. You've got to add your boxes, which is your clear hosing. All that's left to do is commission it. We're going to go through that on site. So there will be continued.